We already know that the WNBA just got cornered, and they got cornered by reality. We're literally seeing in real time biology closing in on them like a vice. But I don't think any of us saw what was coming next. Just when you thought the "what is a woman" crisis at the Women's National Basketball Association had hit peak absurdity, I'd like to introduce you to what many are calling the next great star of the WNBA, a 6'3" Hulk that's already dominating the European women's basketball circuit. And because of the WNBA's war against reality, that Hulk is now threatening to bring that dominance here to the United States. Stick with me to the very end of this video because we're about to find out why this isn't just a controversy anymore. This is a trap with no exit, a genuine lose-lose for the league, no matter which door they walk through. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the controversy that has exploded throughout the WNBA, the Women's National Basketball Association. Indiana Fever guard Sophie Cunningham lit a fuse when she told ESPN a few weeks back that she wanted to protect young girls from having to compete against as well as undress in front of biological men. She said it was just common sense. And the White House itself weighed in with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirming that this is an issue that the president feels very strongly about, keeping biological men out of women's sports and thereby maintaining the integrity of women's sports. Naturally, the ultra-woke wing of the WNBA revolted, with a number of players and coaches making the nonsensical argument that the league should be open to literally all, just as long as you identify as a woman, whatever that happens to be. Now, ironically, this fight exposed the league's dirty little secret. Their own collective bargaining agreement says, quote, only players who are women are eligible to play. But of course, it never actually ever defines what a woman actually is, right? That loophole practically dared reality to come knocking, and boy, did it ever. It started last Friday when former NBA player Enes Kanter took to social media and announced that he is officially declaring himself a WNBA prospect for the 2027 draft. Quote, after careful consideration reviewing the current eligibility guidelines, I am officially declaring myself a WNBA prospect. If simply declaring who you are is all that's required, then I meet every single requirement necessary to compete in the WNBA. And then just hours after that announcement, 6'8" NBA star Royce announced this.
Earlier this week, I made the announcement. I'm transgender. I'm a woman. I identify as sometimes identifying as a woman for purposes of basketball, professional basketball. So I'll be declaring for the WNBA draft in 2027 as well. I mean, I think I'd be unstoppable, but I'm a team first guy. I'm a pass first kind of player. I do the little things. I led my team in all 5 major stat categories at Iowa State University. So I do a little bit of everything. I'll do whatever the coach needs me to do. I'll do whatever the girls need me to do.
So that's NBA first-round draft pick Royce identifying as a sometimes identifying transgender woman. It was absolutely brilliant. It's the very definition of demonstrating absurdity by being absurd, which the great Rush Limbaugh made an art form out of. But as it turns out, those announcements were just the beginning of the WNBA's nightmare. Meet the French basketball player Julie Tatar, originally born Julian Tatar. Julie is a 34-year-old transgender woman playing for Monaco in the French Women's Basketball League. Needless to say, as you can imagine, Julie has dominated the league, winning Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and Domestic Player of the Year in Europe, which caused Outkick founder Clay Travis to call for Julie's immediate drafting into the WNBA. This is exactly the kind of player that all of these woke virtue signalers said they would be happy to play against. Okay, let's see it. And when contacted about it, Julie actually entertained the idea. Of course, who wouldn't imagine being given the opportunity to play in the WNBA? However, as things stand, the WNBA has gone silent. They're silent over whether they would invite the French player to play in the league, even though they've been openly virtue signaling that the league is open to everyone who identifies as a woman, whatever that is. But as Clay Travis pointed out, that silence is it's not going to absolve the WNBA from a very real legal conundrum they now find themselves in.
But this is what I think is necessary. You have to take an absurd policy, which is coaches, players, some owners saying men who identify as women are eligible, and say, okay, Enes Kanter is raising his hand, Royce White is raising his hand, and they are saying, I identify as a woman. How do you prove that they are not women when you are allowing lots of other men to identify as women and theoretically be eligible? I think this is a really tough legal position that declaring for the draft puts the WNBA in, Will, because they have to now, all the other criteria you shared, these guys fulfill, right? So they have to now determine how do they disqualify them? Or are they going to allow all men who identify as women into the league? It's a fun legal mess.
Now, of course, as Clay Travis noted there, this is so much bigger than any one player. What we're seeing unfold in real time here is what happens when a league's commitment to woke norms, to politically correct postures, forces them to spend years dodging the single most basic question in all of sports. And it's a question that actually reveals the absurdity behind all of this. And that question is simple. Who is eligible to compete? And just think of that question. Think of what's entailed in that question. Who is eligible to compete? You'll notice that eligibility, by definition, entails exclusion. Eligibility entails exclusion. It's not hard. You cannot have a rule for who's in without a rule for what? Who's what? Out. That's not bigotry. That's not phobia. It's reality. It's basic logic. And letting a woke-enforced ambiguity fester for years, refusing to answer it, hoping the question would just quietly go away, that's exactly how you end up in this very situation, with a women's league that can't define what a woman is. Cornered by its own cowardice, forced to answer the question anyway, on the least favorable terms imaginable. Reality doesn't negotiate. And reality just sent its bill to the WNBA. Now, this is all another way of saying that no matter what the WNBA decides to do here, it's a lose-lose for them. There's no good way out of this. And again, they brought it entirely upon themselves throughout their own stupid woke commitments. Door number one, the WNBA ignores the French player Tatar entirely. Never reaches out, even though Tatar is exactly who they claim to be championing. And they treat the whole thing as, beneath comment, go radio silent on it. But if they do that, they prove themselves to be absolute hypocrites. All talk, no action. And publication outlets like Outkick, Clay Travis, they'll be happy to remind the WNBA of that every single day. And remember, when you go silent, remember, if BLM taught us anything, it was that silence is compliance, right? They will be permanently exposed as empty, hypocritical virtue signalers. Door number two, actually bring in Tatar into the WNBA. And not only does this trans player end up dominating the league, But critics can rightly point out that the WNBA just sold out women's basketball. They're perfectly willing to sacrifice the integrity of women's sports on the altar of political correctness. They're literally sacrificing fairness on the altar of inclusion. Either way, the league loses. Either way, they reveal themselves to be far less than they claim to be. This is the definition of a trap with no exit. So where does it leave the WNBA? Well, right back where we found them a few weeks ago, trapped between fairness and inclusion. Except now the trap has grown teeth on both sides. You now have first draft NBA players ready to call their bluff on inclusion, and there's now a bona fide European transgender player who fits precisely the bill that their virtue signaling has celebrated, yet they won't invite this trans player into their league. And so this is forcing the ultra-woke, absurdly incompetent commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, to convene an emergency task force just to figure out what precisely defines the eligibility to play in the WNBA, which inevitably involves the catastrophic act of defining precisely what a woman is. Catastrophic, of course, for wokeness, since wokeness is parasitic of reality, and the moment reality comes shining back in, wokeness implodes. And to make matters even worse, now Julie Tatar's name is part of it all, a real bona fide trans athlete. And you can see just how fragile this entire house of cards has become. Every single news story, whether it's a troll from a former NBA All-Star or a French second division player, all of it lands on the exact same unresolved fault line. The WNBA still, to this day, refuses to define what a woman is. That is the real legacy here. The fallout from the extent to which our public institutions have been taken over by lunatics. And if that woke lunacy ends up faltering and dying in the WNBA, then there are no limits to its ultimate and glorious demise. Gang, you shouldn't have to wonder what's really going on. Every Monday night, I go live with courageous patriots just like you for an uncensored Q&A. You bring your toughest questions. I give you straight answers, no filters, no corporate handlers, just you and me and the truth. Click the link below, join the Courageous Patriot Club, and I'll see you this Monday night.